What if you could learn from the money mistakes of 500 people who've already been through retirement, so you don't have to make them yourself? That's exactly what I set out to discover. Over the past several months, I surveyed over 500 retirees with one simple question. What is the single biggest money mistake you made in retirement, or in preparing for retirement? The answers were honest, sometimes painful, and incredibly eye-opening. But here's what surprised me most. When I compiled all 500 responses, one answer dominated the list, and it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't about investments. It wasn't about Social Security timing. It wasn't even about not saving enough. The number one answer caught me completely off guard. And when I share it with you later in this video, I think it might change how you think about retirement entirely. But first, let me walk you through the top 5 mistakes these retirees shared, starting with number 5 and building up to the one that won by a landslide. Before I dive into the results, let me quickly explain how I gathered this information. At Retire with Clarity, I've spent over 15 years helping people transition into retirement. And through that work, I've built relationships with hundreds of retirees, people who are willing to be honest about what worked and what didn't. So I reached out to my network. I connected with retiree communities. I talked to people at financial planning events, and I asked them all the same question. Not, what do you wish you'd done differently? That's too vague. I asked specifically, what is the single biggest money mistake you made? I wanted specifics. I wanted honesty. And that's exactly what I got. 512 responses in total. Ages ranged from 62 to 89. Some had been retired for just a year or two. Others had been retired for over 2 decades. And when I sorted through all the answers, clear patterns emerged. 5 mistakes kept coming up over and over again. But one of them, the number one answer, was mentioned by nearly 3 times as many people as any other response. When I tell you what it is, I think you'll understand why so many retirees feel so strongly about it. Now, I've found that people watching this video typically fall into one of 2 groups. The first group is already retired. You're watching this thinking, I wonder if I made these same mistakes. And if you did, this video might help you course correct before it's too late. The second group is still working. Maybe you're 5, 10, or even 15 years away from retirement. You're watching this thinking, I want to learn from other people's mistakes so I don't repeat them. If that's you, this video could save you tens of thousands of dollars and years of regret. Either way, what these 500 retirees shared applies to both groups. And by the end, I'll give you a simple framework, 3 questions you can ask yourself to make sure you don't fall into these same traps. Let's start with mistake number 5. Mistake number 5, underestimating taxes in retirement. When I read through the survey responses, this one kept appearing with phrases like, I had no idea, and nobody warned me. One retiree named Gerald put it this way. He said, I spent 35 years saving money in my 401k. I thought I was being smart. Then I retired and realized the IRS was my silent partner the whole time. Gerald had $1.4 million saved when he retired at 64. He thought he was set. But here's what he didn't anticipate. Every dollar Gerald withdraws from his traditional 401k is taxed as ordinary income. When he started taking $70,000 per year to cover his expenses, he was pushed into the 22% federal tax bracket. Add state taxes, and Gerald was losing almost 28% of every withdrawal. But it got worse. When Gerald turned 73, required minimum distributions kicked in. Suddenly he was being forced to withdraw over $80,000 per year, whether he needed it or not. That income, combined with his Social Security, pushed him into an even higher bracket. And here's the part that really frustrated Gerald. That extra income made 85% of his Social Security benefits taxable too. He was paying taxes on his retirement savings and then paying taxes on his Social Security because of those same retirement savings. Gerald told me, I calculated it once. Over my retirement, I'll probably pay $350,000 in taxes that I could have reduced or avoided if I'd planned better. When I asked him what he wished he'd done differently, his answer was simple. Roth conversions. Someone should have told me about Roth conversions when I was 58, 59, 60. I had low-income years after I retired early. I could have moved money into a Roth and paid 12% tax instead of 24%, but I didn't know. And Gerald isn't alone. 47 retirees in my survey mentioned some version of this same regret. The lesson here is that retirement tax planning doesn't start when you retire. It starts 5 to 10 years before. And if no one has talked to you about your tax situation in retirement, that's a conversation you need to have now. Now, mistake number 4 is one I hear constantly, and it connects directly to what Gerald just shared. Mistake number 4, not having a healthcare plan between retirement and Medicare. This mistake appeared in 52 survey responses, and the stories were remarkably similar. One woman named Barbara retired at 61. She had worked for the same company for 28 years, and her employer-sponsored health insurance cost her about $350 per month for excellent coverage. When Barbara retired, she assumed she'd find something similar on the private market. She was healthy. She didn't take any medications. How expensive could it be? The answer was $1,900 per month. Barbara was shocked. That's almost $23,000 per year just for health insurance, for 4 years until Medicare kicked in at 65. That's over $90,000 she hadn't budgeted for. She told me that one thing, healthcare, almost derailed my entire retirement. I seriously considered going back to work just to get insurance. But here's where Barbara's story gets interesting. When we talked further, I asked if she'd looked into the Affordable Care Act marketplace. She had, but she thought she didn't qualify for subsidies because of her retirement account withdrawals. What Barbara didn't realize is that with careful planning, she could have managed her taxable income to qualify for premium subsidies. If she had kept her income below certain thresholds, her monthly premium could have dropped to under $500. But no one had explained this to her before she retired. She didn't know that healthcare planning and tax planning were connected. She made withdrawal decisions without considering the insurance implications. Barbara's advice to others was direct. She said, before you retire, get 3 numbers. What will insurance cost at your current income? What will it cost if you manage your income down? And what's the magic number you need to stay below for subsidies? That calculation alone could save you $50,000 over 4 years. Now, mistake number 3 is one that financial advisors talk about constantly, but hearing it from actual retirees made it feel much more real. Before I share it, if this survey information is valuable so far, hit the like button. It helps more people find this video. And let me know in the comments, have you already made any of these mistakes? Or are you hearing about them just in time? Sometimes the comments section becomes the most valuable part of the video because people share their own experiences too. Mistake number 3. Taking Social Security at the wrong time. Now, when I say wrong time, I need to be careful here. The right time to take Social Security is different for everyone, but 67 retirees in my survey specifically mentioned regretting their Social Security timing decision, and interestingly, the regrets went both directions. Some regretted taking it too early. One man named Charles told me he claimed at 62 because he wanted the money immediately. He said, I thought I was being smart by getting my money as soon as possible. I didn't trust the government to keep paying. I wanted my check. Charles is now 78. His monthly benefit is about $1,650. If he had waited until 70, it would be approximately $2,900. That's $1,250 more per month, $15,000 more per year. Over the last 8 years since he turned 70, Charles has missed out on approximately $120,000 in additional income, and that gap continues every single month. When I asked Charles if he needed the money at 62, he admitted he didn't. He had other savings. He took it early out of fear, not necessity. His advice, don't claim early because you're scared. Claim early if you actually need the income. Those are 2 very different things. But here's where it gets more nuanced. Another woman, Patricia, had the opposite regret. She delayed her Social Security until 70 to maximize her benefit. Smart move, right? Except Patricia's husband passed away when she was 71. They had planned to travel extensively throughout their late 60s. They had a list of places they wanted to visit together. But because Patricia was working part-time to delay Social Security, they kept postponing those trips. They said next year for 4 years in a row. Patricia told me, with tears in her eyes, "I got a bigger check, but I lost my travel partner. All those trips we planned, I do them alone now, or I don't do them at all." She said, "I traded experiences with my husband for a few $100s more per month. I would give back every penny of that increase to have those years back." This is why I say Social Security timing isn't just a math problem, it's a life problem. The right answer depends on your health, your spouse's health, your other income sources, and what you actually want to do with your retirement. Patricia's story reminds us that sometimes the optimal financial decision isn't the right decision for your life. Now, mistake number 2 is one that I see constantly in my work. And when I share the stories from the survey, you'll understand why it's so dangerous. Mistake number 2, not having a spending plan for retirement. This mistake showed up in 78 survey responses, making it the second most common answer, and the stories fell into 2 opposite categories. The first category, people who spent too much too fast. One couple, Jim and Carol, retired with $950,000 at age 63. They had worked hard their entire lives, and they were ready to enjoy themselves. In their first year of retirement, they bought a new car. They took 3 international trips. They renovated their kitchen. They helped their daughter with a down payment on her house. When they looked at their accounts at the end of year 1, they had spent $185,000. Jim told me, "We didn't have a budget. We just spent. We figured we had $1 million. We could afford it." At that pace, they would have run out of money before age 80. Fortunately, Jim and Carol realized what was happening and made adjustments. They cut back dramatically in years 2 and 3, but those early withdrawals had done real damage. Their portfolio never fully recovered because they had sold investments during a market dip to fund their spending. Jim's advice: the first 2 years of retirement are the most dangerous. You're excited, you have time, and if you don't have a spending plan, you will overspend. I guarantee it. But here's the other side of this mistake, the one that might surprise you. Just as many retirees in my survey regretted underspending as overspending. A man named Howard retired at 65 with $1.8 million. He was terrified of running out of money. So he and his wife lived extremely frugally. They rarely traveled. They didn't upgrade their 15-year-old cars. They said no to family experiences because they were too expensive. Howard is now 82. He still has $2.1 million. His portfolio actually grew during retirement because he barely touched it. And here's what Howard told me: "I have more money now than when I retired, and I'm too old to enjoy it. My wife has dementia. I have trouble walking. All those trips we said someday never came." Howard's voice broke when he said, "I was so afraid of running out of money that I forgot to actually live. That's my biggest regret. I saved too well and lived too small." This is why mistake number 2 is so tricky. Both extremes, overspending and underspending, lead to regret. The answer is having a clear, realistic spending plan that lets you enjoy your retirement without compromising your security. One woman in the survey said it perfectly: "A spending plan isn't a restriction, it's permission. It tells you what you can spend so you don't feel guilty enjoying your money." Now, let me share the number 1 answer, the mistake that more retirees mention than any other. And I have to tell you, when I first compiled the results, I had to read them twice because I couldn't believe how dominant this answer was. Mistake number 1, the answer that won by a landslide. 143 retirees, nearly 3 times more than the second-place answer, said the same thing. And here it is: "I waited too long to retire and prioritized money over time." When I first read through these responses, I noticed they used different words, but the message was identical. I worked 3 more years for padding I didn't need. I missed my wife's healthiest years because I wanted a bigger nest egg. I traded time I can't get back for money I ended up not spending. One response hit me particularly hard. A man named Robert wrote, "I retired at 68 with $2.3 million. My wife retired at 66 with health issues. We had planned to travel the world together. 2 years into retirement, she was diagnosed with a condition that made travel impossible. We never took a single trip on our bucket list. I have money. What I don't have is the years I wasted working when I could have been living." Robert's response was 6 paragraphs long. He wanted me to understand how much he regretted the decision to keep working those extra years. Another woman, Susan, told me she worked until 67 because she wanted to feel completely secure. Her husband retired at 65 and waited for her. When Susan finally retired, her husband had already been diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's. Susan said, "I thought 2 more years of work would give us more options. Instead, it took away our options. Every year I delayed retirement was a year of his health we lost." But here's what really stood out in these responses. Not a single one of these 143 people said they regretted retiring. Not one said, "I wish I had worked longer." Every single one said they wish they had retired sooner. Let me read one more. A man named William wrote, "Here's what nobody tells you. The difference between retiring with 1.5 million and 1.8 million means nothing when you're 75. But the difference between retiring at 62 and 65 means everything. Those 3 years of health and energy, you can't buy them back for any amount of money." William continued, "I spent my life saving for the future, and now I'm in the future, and I wish I had more past." That last line stayed with me. I spent my life saving for the future. Now I'm in the future, and I wish I had more past. This is the mistake that haunts retirees more than any other. Not investment losses, not tax mistakes, not Social Security timing. It's sacrificing time for money, and then realizing too late that time was the only thing they couldn't earn back. Now, I promised you a framework, 3 questions to help you avoid these 5 mistakes. Here they are. I call them the clarity questions. Question 1. Am I making this decision based on math alone, or am I including life in the equation? Every mistake in this survey came back to this. Gerald made tax decisions based only on math. Patricia made Social Security decisions based only on math. Robert worked extra years based only on math. The retirees who thrived made decisions based on numbers and life circumstances. Health, relationships, energy, time. Question 2. What am I trading, and is the trade worth it? Every financial decision involves a trade. Working another year trades time for money. Spending more trades, security for experience. Spending less trades, experience for security. Before any major decision, ask yourself, what am I giving up? What am I getting? Is that trade worth it? Question 3. If I'm wrong, can I recover? And how long will it take? Some mistakes are reversible. If you overspend in year 1, you can cut back in year 2. If you take Social Security early, that's permanent. If you spend years you could have been living, that's permanent. Weight your decisions by their permanence. The irreversible decisions deserve the most thought. Here's what I want you to take away from these 500 voices. Retirement planning isn't just about having enough money. It's about having enough time to use the money you have. Every retiree who shared their story wanted the same thing: more life. Not necessarily more money. More life. Gerald wanted more tax-efficient years. Barbara wanted more affordable health care years. Charles wanted more Social Security income. Jim and Carol wanted more sustainable spending years. Howard wanted more years of actually living. And those 143 retirees who gave the number 1 answer? They wanted more years with their spouse, more years with their health, more years before it was too late. The happiest retirees I've met aren't the ones who retired with the most money. They're the ones who retired with enough money and enough time. Don't make the mistake of trading one for the other. If these 500 retirees taught you something today, hit the like button. Every like helps more people learn from these stories before they make the same mistakes. And if you want to keep building your retirement clarity, watch this video next. It walks you through exactly how to calculate if you have enough to retire. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.